Let me turn to Maria Luisa Hayem. As you can see, we are very much behind schedule, so I'm glad that you are keeping the time. So Maria Luisa Hayem, she's the Minister of Finance and Economy of El Salvador, a very close country to our hearts, and we are looking forward to hearing from you. How are you looking for social cohesion, jobs, migration, all these interesting topics that El Salvador is confronting, with the new president, of course, Nayib Bukele. So the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here this afternoon and participate in this very important event where we're touching upon very important topics for the entire Latin American region, I believe. I'm very honored to represent the government of El Salvador, led by President Nayib Bukele, that you might have heard because of his vision, his disruptive ideas, not only on how to generate economic growth in the country and transform El Salvador, but also ideas on how to reduce inequality and promote growth at a global level. Eight months ago, and 5 days actually, we took over the leadership of El Salvador, a country that was lagging behind not only in the economic aspect, but also in the innovation aspect, in the adoption of technologies, in the communication with the citizens. One of the first actions that, the actions that President Bukele he's implemented actively has been the constant communication through social media and other media outlets in order to be very close to the population, to the point of creating more involvement of citizens in the political, economic, social agenda of the country, which responds to some of the issues that we've covered earlier. We have this very close communication with our population, and has made President Bukele have more than 90% of the approval of the citizens. So we believe this is a great start. We also managed in a very short period of time recover the trust of the private sector, which have been completely isolated from for at least a decade from the government work, or the relationship was not really there. So we found a country, as I mentioned, lagging behind, with an stagnated growth of 2.5% for the past 10 years. We expect to close this year around 2019 with 2.3% growth. Our exports didn't even grow 1% in 2019. We still see 20.8% of our households living in multidimensional poverty. We see also multidimensional inequality, which is something that we're also very committed in closing that gap. So a part of that, we are, like many other Latin American countries, we are an indebted country, and we are also facing a global economic growth slowdown that makes things more difficult. A part of that, we are a dollarized economy, which is one of our biggest assets, but at the same time, it reduces our monetary maneuver in order to promote economic growth. Having said that, if we go to the next, sorry, that should be me. Yeah. If we see how we're ranked in international indicators, we are high up there, but not necessarily in the best positions. We're 91 We're in the 91 position of 190 economies in the Doing Business World Bank Index. Last year, in the Global Competitiveness Index, 103 of 141 economies. Global Innovation Index, 108 out of 129 economies. So we have a lot to do. We have a big challenge ahead, but it's not everything it's bad news. As I mentioned earlier, we have the support of our entire, the majority of our population. We are a dollarized economy. We have a privileged geographical location with access to the Pacific Ocean that positions us, or it puts us in a place where companies or investors of different countries can see El Salvador as a place where they can establish and become a distribution hub. We have our biggest asset, which is our talent. We have a human resource that's very highly appreciated and valued by international local investors, an asset, a human talent that learns easily, that works hard, and goes the extra mile. So we also have more than 10 free trade agreements that we have signed in the past that cover more than 40 countries. So we have also that path already. We've gone through those negotiations. Now we see it's a time to make sure that we take advantage of these opportunities. So we've also identified sectors with a lot of potential. The tourism is one of the strategic sectors that has been identified as a strategic sector where we can hopefully gain positive results in the short, medium term. The financial sector also very interested in becoming a hub of financial sectors in the region. As I mentioned earlier, a high potential for distribution and logistics services, and sectors like textiles, pharmaceutics, and I'm forgetting the word in English, but some other agro-industrial sectors and agricultural sectors that we believe have a great potential for growth. So in this context, what we're aiming for is to be able to increase our competitiveness that we've lost, unfortunately, in the past decades, to be able to increase our exports, and to increase our local and international investment, because having a very small market, there is 6.5, the population of El Salvador is 6.5 million inhabitants. So we think that by increasing competitiveness, by increasing, therefore, our exports and investment, we're going to be able to generate this growth, which for us is very important. That is a growth that's sustainable and inclusive, which are the topics that we're covering this day. So how are we going to reach to that point where we become competitive again? And we are approaching this in a very comprehensive manner. We're basically putting together an economic cabinet composed of, I want to say, most of the government institutions who are going to be in the service of the population and this objective, to achieve this objective of economic growth. In this sense, we will be working in creating an ecosystem that enables that increase in trade and that increase in investment. And we have identified several, at least 9 ingredients that should be part of this ecosystem. Among of them are having automated government services. Unfortunately, one of the biggest constraints for growth in the past for El Salvador was bureaucracy, red tape. There were millions of dollars that were trapped because of bureaucracy that never translated into jobs. So that's something that we're putting a lot of attention. Also, in terms of our trade, currently goods take a lot of time to move from one frontier to another, and we have reactivated our National Committee for Trade Facilitation, where we sit down with the private sector. We learn from them what are the barriers that there are in terms of trade facilitation, and we're able to put together an agenda of more than 60 actions that we're implementing with the input of the private sector, and which helped us. This whole process of reactivating this committee, resuming the conversation with the private sector, hearing them, and working on these actions was one of the things that allow the private sector to trust the government again. And this is not something that I'm saying because I hear it when I talk to private sector representatives, but it's also something that we're seeing in surveys, the results of surveys of recognized think tanks in El Salvador. We're also moving not only towards reducing the red tape and making the government more efficient, but also the idea is that we move to a digitalized government. Someone was mentioning the example of Estonia earlier, and we think that there's a lot to learn. And I want to know how many minutes.
Like 1?
1 minute, okay. Perfect. So just to go back, these 9 areas, working on our human talent, access to finance is very important, access to competitive energy, access to international markets, logistics and digital connectivity, innovation and technology, the quality. It's also very important to be incorporated not only in the private sector goods and services, but also as the government, in the government services, and being a link of small enterprise with bigger ones, and link our production with international production. And this is what we're working, as I mentioned, as the entire government, but we also have a digital agenda that's being implemented, led by the Secretariat of Innovation. For the first time in El Salvador, we have a Secretary of Innovation that is pushing forward a digital agenda to become basically a digital government, develop a digital identity, work on government modernization, productivity, innovation, and digital governance. So we know we have a big task ahead. We understand that this is not something that we can do by ourselves. We appreciate all the support that we have received from international organizations. We look forward to keep working with them, and also our bilateral donors who are working closely with us in order to resume the growth and create more employments that we need urgently. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maria Luisa. I'm so sorry I'm pushing everybody, but we are very much out of time. But one of the things you didn't mention, and I should, is that President Bukele has done a tremendous job in terms of security. That has been outstanding, how much you have improved the problem of violence in El Salvador. So congratulations for that.